I don't know if we're live yet.
I don't know either. I have no idea.
Who's watching Facebook?
We're live.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing live stream. Good morning, Danny and Randall. It is
Morning.
good morning. It is Saturday,
Morning.
April 27th at 9 a.m. on the dot. We are doing something new today with Facebook. They changed a bunch of stuff on Facebook. So we're just seeing if this works. Hopefully you guys are actually seeing us on here. But yeah, how's your morning going, you guys?
Chris said good morning, so apparently it's working.
He did.
Hey, all
I
right.
don't even
Thanks,
see it. I'm
Chris.
trying to see the stream on our group, but I don't see it. But oh, now I see it. There it is. Good morning,
Cool.
Chris.
Morning, morning.
Good
They always got to
morning.
change stuff, and then you gotta go through all. And you know what? You know what
That's
kills me
just
with these?
technology, man.
Yeah, but it should like I feel like these sites it shouldn't be that hard to figure out how to do stuff though. Like you shouldn't need an article to explain to you
A
how to set it
PhD
up.
in
Yeah. Like
computer
And it's
science.
changing stuff that already works. Like, who
I
is
yeah.
know.
complaining about how it already worked perfectly?
Well, it was too
Yeah.
easy because you just
Yeah.
hit
Yeah.
one button and you didn't have to enter anything. Like,
They're like, guys, we
Uh,
need you to press like 15 buttons. Basically, if you guys don't know, good morning, Bryce. If you guys don't know, Facebook changed their like groups API. So uh, you can't connect to Zoom as easy as you used to be able to. And so
Now
now
it's
we
more of
can
an
go through a
OBS
streaming
style
service.
connection.
Yeah. What I
yeah.
did notice, though, which is kind of funny, is that it switches the position of us
Oh, does it?
Ooh.
faces. Yeah, like now I'm on the top left and you're on the top right. Normally I'm on the top right, I think.
Huh.
Oh, well, maybe something new for people.
There
Yeah,
you go. You got a
switch it
little bit
up a
different
little bit.
different perspective of us. That's what
Yeah,
matters.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so you guys got your coffee, you got your, I don't know what else, your
I
tea,
got coffee and tea. Yeah.
your Danish, your pastry
Hmm.
of the morning. Danny
There's a
always has this
chocolate
like
croissant.
baller ass pastry in the morning. I'm always jealous. You have this giant croissant or something.
Dude, we have this great
Oh,
coffee shop right by us, and he gets these pastries from this awesome bakery. So it's like
that's
I
amazing.
can't help but go all the time.
I got to
Really
get
good.
on top of that game. We don't have like a good pastry where I live, I don't think, or a good pastry, a good bakery where I
Oh, they're
live.
few and far between,
Hmm.
man. They're hard to
Yeah.
find.
They
They're
used to be
really
like
good.
a thing, you know? People always had like a nice bakery in your town, but
Now you can't make enough money as a baker, so nobody does it anymore.
yeah,
Back in
Oh,
the
public
that's
day,
the
you
one.
could make a
dominates
living as a
everything.
baker.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
it's like not a chance.
They used
It's
to
a
always dream
shame,
about going
man.
to Europe, though, man. They're like, they have such good
Oh yeah.
bakeries everywhere. And it's
Europe's
like,
got
and
it
they've been
right.
open for like 1,000 years and stuff,
Well, they
like
don't care about making
consistently.
money because healthcare is for free, education's for free,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they get 2 months a year off.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. What's the
I
bother?
read some article the other day where I forget who it was. There was a CEO of some uh European company and he was like, "Yeah, Americans have this amazing work ethic." And I'm like, "Man, it's not a work ethic. It's just
No.
go broke instantly if we don't work our ass off nonstop." But
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what happens. Uh,
welcome to America. Chris said our bakery turned into a brewery. It's a natural
Nice.
progression. Yeah, damn.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't a brewery, it was going to be a marijuana shop.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
basically. Good
Eric
morning,
joined us
Eric.
too.
How you doing,
Morning.
buddy?
Now it's a new type of bakery.
Yeah. Get baked. You don't get the baked goods. Oh my God. Leave the yeast. Amazing. Good to see everybody here this morning. It's great to have like a nice little group every morning on
Yeah, it's
Saturday.
nice.
Today we are talking about full stack versus front end versus back end development and what those all mean and which one you should choose as a developer because you have a lot of options when it comes to becoming a web developer, right?
And before we get
Yep.
into things, for
Oh
anybody
yeah.
who's
Oh,
watching the video live or anybody who's watching the video afterwards, let us know down in the comments what questions you have about full stack, front
yeah.
end, back end, and we can answer them live for you if you're here, or we can even answer them afterwards by replying to your comment.
I know it's
Yeah,
crazy technology that we
it
have where
is.
we do things in the future, but in the past, I don't know how that works. It's crazy.
Mhm.
We can do it now or later. Yeah.
Yeah, now or later.
Yeah,
But
it is crazy like when we're getting back into it, like there's so many paths you can take. in technology. It's amazing. Like, and it's cool because like it does make you feel like you're never closed in. Like there's you can always just learn something new, but it also makes it really hard starting out to know like I remember when we first started learning all that stuff again, I was like, dude, I don't even know which way to go because there's so many
Yeah.
technologies, tools to learn, and it's like it seems like it's you could spend endless time on any one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even within just one of those three, like if you just chose front end, even within that, there's 20 different options you have. You could do like React, Next, Vue, Angular, 3JS. Like there's just a million different options.
Yeah, you could even
Not
focus just on like design. You could focus on user experience. You could focus. I mean, that's all technically part of it, right? And that's part of the process.
Totally.
I would, yeah,
not to mention for a lot of the boot camps, it's easier and more cost effective just to get you really confused and then kick you out and say, good luck finding a
yeah,
job.
yeah.
Basically, yeah. Chris
When you
said,
hit that
what kind of
Starbucks, that's it.
problems do front end devs solve versus back end devs? That's a good question, Chris. So
Good question.
you guys want to give your shot at this answer or
Sure. I mean,
go for it?
front-end developers are focused on really the look of the site. I think that's the easiest and like the functionality of the part that's facing the user. So they'll solve a lot of stuff that has to do with, like they'll use JavaScript and stuff to deal with like dynamic, maybe things within the actual part of the page the user's seeing. I'm trying to explain this without being
Hmm.
too confusing, I guess, but it's not working. Whereas, so they'll solve problems that have to do with like, maybe like form validation on the client side, or, maybe dynamic titles, things like that, or just setting up the website so it looks right, so that everything works properly. Backend's going to deal with all the logic and like databasing and like handling the data and like security and stuff. It will mostly be on the back end, but not
Can
all of
I
it. There's
can
a
I
lot of
answer?
overlap too. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it,
So
Rand.
the main problem encountered by front end developers is dealing with back end developers. And then the main
Yeah.
problem for back end developers is dealing with front end developers.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep. And then if you're full stack developer, you can just do it all on your own and get paid more
Yeah.
money, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, let me answer this one a little bit too. So I think when it comes to front end development, you're basically building everything that a user engages with and sees, right? It's like actually the website that they're seeing, how those things function on the front side of the website, but not any of the business logic or databasing or anything like that. So a backend developer is going to deal with basically APIs, database, um, and business logic, right? Like their
Yeah.
backend functions. Maybe authentication too falls into that category.
What do you
Uh,
mean by business logic? Because I think that may be a bit abstract for a lot of people.
yeah. So business logic means essentially how data is handled, manipulated, and then sent back to the front end. So let's say, for example, you are signing up for a service, right? Like let's say you're creating a Facebook account or something like that. So what you need to do is when you're like signing up for a Facebook account, you're going to get to a screen that's going to ask you for maybe a name, a password, and then some other information about yourself. So that is the front end, right? That form is front end development. But as soon as that data moves to like away from the web page that you're on your local machine, that's back end development. And so that information is taken to a server and then something's done with it. So that password might be stored, your name might be stored, and then maybe there's something that happens like when you like sign up for something, maybe you get an email that says welcome to Facebook, right? So it's having to take your email address and then format that into an email and send that via an email to your email service. So that's the business logic part, is like it's doing some logic. It's taking information, manipulating it in some way, in this case, like into an email and then sending that. It could be more complex than that. It could be like doing calculations on something, or there's just a lot that goes into
Oh,
that.
there's
But
a ton that can be done. And it's
yeah,
it's a good we should mention too, the reason why it's separated too is also for security and functionality, right? You remove a lot of like all
yeah,
the processing the data and stuff for security reasons. It's not on the front side, so no one can interact with it unless they have full access to it, right? Unless like an admin or
yeah.
something, I guess
And
that.
Randall can probably speak about that. Why do we not store passwords
Yeah.
plain
And
text
so
or on the front end?
interesting story. So just this week, studying for the OSCP, I was doing a lot of stuff with NTLM hashes, which is a way that Windows used to store passwords. Now they have NTLM v2, which is a little bit more advanced. But before NTLM, they had LAN manager hashes, which were only allowed 8 characters at most. And I think it would break it into 2 4-character bits and hash them separately. So it was like super insecure. But then they made NTLM, which is a bit longer. I think it's 16, something like that, 16 characters for a hash. But what happens is they don't salt them. So they're super
Hmm.
easy to crack because when you're hashing stuff, like,
Explain to people what salting is because they probably
yeah.
won't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, let's say you have an algorithm that encrypts everything. Like we'll just do it easy, like a pig Latin type of thing, where like you add AY to the end of every word. Okay? So if you know pig Latin, you can all of a sudden crack what anyone's speaking because you know that and you know every word, you just add AY to the end. That's pig Latin is essentially a hash of English. So
Yeah.
but it just adds AY to the end of it. So they have more complex hashes nowadays. But what you can do is you can take a dictionary that has all the words and you can run it through that algorithm, and then you can get the output of it. So it'll say, this word is linked with this hash, and this word is linked with this hash. And hashes are cool because they're one-way functions. So you can hash something, and it'll give you an output that is a fixed length, but you won't be able to go backwards.
Hmm.
Or it's very difficult to go backwards. But if you take every word in known existence and you just have some very strong processors, you can hash every single algorithm, and then you have it in a book, and then you take this table, which is called a rainbow table, and you compare this rainbow table with all of the hashed passwords. Well, it turns out that Windows, up until somewhat recently, they did not salt them, which means adding a known variable to this hash. So basically,
Yeah.
before they hash it, they would add a few more characters to it. And
A
so that
few
makes it
random
completely
characters.
random because then you would need to generate a rainbow table for every single salt that you have. And so they didn't do this. So NTLM passwords are super easy to crack as long as they're not like exceptionally long or unique. But even if they're not, you can also do this pass the hash attack, which is crazy because you just take the hashed password, and instead of cracking it so you have the password, you just pass that whole hashed piece, and that works just as well. So and this is a crazy thing because like so so Zoom takes something that is working perfectly, like
Yeah.
us being able to stream on here every week, working perfectly, no problems, and they changed it.
It
But yet
wasn't Zoom, it was
Microsoft,
Facebook.
oh,
That's
okay, yeah,
Facebook.
okay, so Facebook changed it, right? So, but Microsoft has this thing that's been broken for like a decade, and they still just leave it because they consider it like legacy software. That's
Yeah.
not their problem.
Not
So they're
always.
just like,
Yeah.
use the newer
Fine.
stuff. We're not
It's
going to
fine.
patch the old stuff. That was,
Microsoft is
yeah.
like that meme of the dog in the burning room. Like the whole
Everything's
company is
okay.
like that
Drinking
meme where they're
coffee.
like, it's fine.
Everything's good.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll
Oh,
work
dude.
itself out.
Working on a
Mhm.
Windows machine is like always exciting because you never know what thing's gonna break for no reason whatsoever. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
run updates and stuff just stops working because
Mhm.
it's not compatible. Because there's a lot of companies competing. You know,
Sure, yeah.
that's part of it.
They
Oh
don't I
God.
mean I think that's something, it's sort of like a detriment, but it's also a good thing is like Mac has for years made it so difficult to use anything of their software. It's like not extremely compatible. And like there's a lot of things where like, why don't you let me do this with your products? But I think
Yeah.
that actually helps them in a lot of ways because they keep everything sort of in-house and they make sure there's checks on everything.
Everything works
But
together really well as opposed to Microsoft where you have anybody can make for it. And so you get a bunch of stuff that sometimes has problems.
actually,
Yeah.
turns out the
Right.
only reason the whole entire world hasn't crashed yet is just because of the diversity of Windows and Mac and Unix and Linux and all the different flavors of it. Because
Yeah,
like even Linux and Unix super secure, but just a few weeks ago they had this xzutils thing, which basically just
I think I heard
made
about that.
any Linux system completely vulnerable. Like 10 out of 10 on the CVSS or CVDD score,
Jeez.
CVSS, whichever,
That's
critical
so crazy.
vulnerability score. And yeah, absolutely crazy.
They fixed that, I presume, right?
They fixed that. It's basically just because it was open source software. So like everybody
Yeah.
loves open source software because it's open source software. But like the other thing is you have to trust other people. And so basically
Yeah.
someone in this open source chain who is trusted for years all of a sudden intentionally inserted some malicious software upstream. So anybody who downloaded Linux
Mm.
between like a few days in March, all of a sudden anybody can have remote access to their machine.
Do you think
Well,
it's
that's the hard
possible
part
to
too.
find out who did that? Like what?
They know who well they know the not the actual person, but they know the profile of the person, whatever the
Yeah.
avatar of the person, because it's
Yeah.
one of these anonymous people, you know.
Wow.
Chris just said, I love seeing a random Windows 98 or XP machine running some business app in the wild.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
I remember it's funny you said that. I remember I went to like Israel years ago and I was with some soldiers and they let me like go in a tank, believe it or not.
Nice.
And
Believe it or not.
dude, and this was probably like mid 2000s, like 2008, 6, something like that. And dude, the tank was running Windows 95. I was like, this is insecure.
That's
Nice.
super
Probably
secure. Yeah.
not the most up to date shit
Nice.
ever.
Anybody can jump in your tank and just use it, whatever. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal. Password's like guest.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
User account is Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheney,
Oh, God.
password
But yeah,
tank.
Halliburton. Halliburton rules with an
Yeah.
E.
Oh my god.
Okay, so anyways, on to the
back on
topic that we were
topic.
talking
Yeah.
about today,
Yeah.
front end versus back end versus
Let
full
me-
stack.
Let me ask you guys this, because I think this is how do you know if you're gonna like front end or back end or full stack
I have
more?
a
Because I think,
I have a good answer for this, I think.
yeah,
Hmm.
let's go. What is it?
Yeah. Because I see this a lot because I've worked with a lot of different front end and back end developers, and I tend to notice this trend, right? So front end developers, a lot of your job is going to be sort of creative, like artistic aspects. So because you're actually building what people are seeing and how
You have to
those
make
things
choices
function.
too about how
Yeah.
stuff's gonna function that people don't like. They don't hand you everything. Like
Yeah,
they're
they
gonna give
hand
you
you
a
a Figma
guide,
file that has
a bunch of
um,
pictures.
a bunch of pictures in it that don't talk about how anything works, right?
Yeah.
Like when you hover over a button, does it change color? Does it get bigger? How do you know that you're hovering it, right? Um, so those are decisions that you have to sort of make as a developer or communicate those a lot with your team to ask those questions. And so I think there's a lot more creative aspect in being a front end developer where you actually are changing how people see the site, what it looks like, how they engage with it. And then the other side of that is the back end developer where you're dealing with a lot of logic, like we were talking about, like you're writing functions. A lot of it is abstracted. So if you, and what I mean by that is it's not very like straightforward. You have to sort of think like chess, like a few moves in advance, right? And so if you sort of like that a lot of logic thinking, then that's definitely the side for you. If you don't like, solving complex problems in your head, then I would stick to front end because front end's going to be like, this button looks cool, or I can change, animations with CSS, whereas backend is going to be like, I need to write some function that works through some crazy problem. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Nate.
I was gonna say too, nowadays too, a lot of these frameworks and all, I find too, there is a lot more overlap too between the two, I think. Because
Totally.
like when you're using like React and stuff, like it's all functions, and a lot of it is you're doing handling stuff conditionally and dynamically because it makes it faster and easier. So there is
Yeah.
a lot more of that on the front end side too. So I think you do see a lot of it, like kind of like the commingling of it, I guess. Which is why I do like
Yeah.
full stack too, because you get to see both and understand both, and you get to understand. Like I think it makes setting up the front end easier when you understand back end a bit.
Yeah. I wanted to
I
mention
think that
this. Go ahead, Randall.
I think that everyone should just kind of aim towards full stack because essentially you can't do one in a vacuum. Like
Yeah.
you can't be a front end developer and develop websites, and you can't be a back end developer and develop websites because if you're just one of those, you're going to have to work with other ones. That's why I was saying that's
Yeah.
the biggest problem for front end developers is back end
Yes.
developers and vice versa because you have to work with them. And it's easier if you're a full stack developer because then you can, have these conversations with yourself and decide what works best for you. But if not, you have to be able to work with other people and work around that stuff. But that being said, like also recognizing that if your goal is to become a full stack developer, it's not something that happens in one Udemy course or something like that, because they'll sell
Yeah.
you like the ultimate full stack developer 2024. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, sweet, I can buy this course for $9.99 and then I'll be a full stack developer. And it's just not realistic. But
Yeah.
you can take that course, and then from that course, you can kind of discover what areas appeal to you, and you can start there, maybe starting on front end stuff, getting really good on that, and eventually in 5 years, you can have that full stack ability.
I like that response too, because I think that you can, if you aim for full stack, you don't need to just do back. And a lot of times now I know like there's so many tools, like Firebase is a great one where like it simplifies backend so much and
Mhm.
handles so much for you that it really makes, I think, that full stack entry the bar very low to where it used to
Yeah.
be high. Like you're not writing the everything from scratch, because I think like we talked about this before, doing like auth and stuff, dude, from scratch can be challenging. Or like
Yeah.
handling, like all the CRUD functions from scratch can be a pain in the ass when you first start doing it because it's a lot of code. Like just to get, everything right and make sure there's no like gaps or like holes in it
Security
that's gonna cause,
flaws.
yeah, and that, yeah,
Yeah.
security flaws
Mm.
too, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I wanted to mention sort of two different things. One is I totally agree with what you said, Randall, in that, you know, if you are trying to become a web developer, it is worthwhile aiming towards full stack eventually because like you said, you are going to have to handle both of these at some point. And it's going to make your life easier if you understand full stack because you can talk with back end or front end developers and really just make everything work because I think when I look at code, the one thing that is usually the most broken about code is how the front end and the back end connect together, right? Because a lot of times they're they're logically thought of in two vacuums, right? There's like the front end developer who's like, I'm going to do it this way, and the back end developer comes in, they're like, I'm going to do it this way, and then they don't communicate, and so the connection between them is really crappy. Um,
Yeah.
so it helps to be able to be that full stack developer and say, hey, I need you to build, an API that does this, and then I can connect that to the front end, or the other way around, where I need you to be able to insert this information in the front end. The other thing that I want to mention is that you also can make way more money as a full stack developer
Yeah.
because the company doesn't normally hire just like one of those. They want to hire a full stack developer because they know this issue. They realize that if I just hire a front end developer, they're not going to be able to do something. Go ahead, Randall. You had
So
something to
one
say.
thing, one thing that popped up when you were saying that was, I think it's called Brooks Law or something that begins with B's law, but
Mm-hmm.
relates to the number of people working on a project,
Mm,
where the speed that you accomplish a project increases linearly with the people that you add. But
Yeah.
the bugs and the errors and everything that arise from problems in communication increase as this square. So like this just goes to show why being a full stack developer is going to benefit you more because you're going to be able to get stuff done without increasing the number of errors that are in there. Whereas if you have a front end and a back end developer, already you're going to have more
Yeah.
bugs inherent in the project just from problems in communication.
And that makes total sense too, because it happens all the time. I just wanted to answer. Bryce asked an interesting question, which was he said, I'm interested in
yeah.
full stack and he wants to do freelance. He said, I'm thinking I'll most likely would need to learn AWS or Azure as well. I would need to have a server end set up to make the project work. Am I correct? Gonna need some backend, obviously. Whether it's like, and local servers are rare these days. Usually it's
Yeah.
some kind of cloud, but there's a lot of options. We talked about Firebase is awesome, which I like that a lot, and that uses Google Cloud. There's also Azure, there's AWS. You're going to need something to handle the data as a data, and have your database on, and you to handle the logic. And one of those services are very effective and easy to use.
Yeah. I want to comment here because I think I saw, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Bryce, but I think I saw you post somewhere else online that you were looking at different like local servers to purchase. I would probably not recommend that because it's a lot of upkeep and there's security issues, just like physical security issues with
Yeah,
that. There's so many companies now that have cloud computing, like cloud, infrastructure like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And they're really, really cheap. Like they are, especially when you're building small, websites and you don't have millions of users, they're pretty much free. Like if you use
Yeah.
Firebase, you can host a website for free without, um, literally
And
for free.
the amount of users they give you is crazy. Like you don't
Yeah.
start paying until you
Like
hit like I think it's a couple
100,000
thousand.
users or
It's
something. Yeah.
insane.
It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. What
It's
do you got to say, Randall?
And I have a suggestion in terms of doing that because all of the
Yeah.
cloud providers make you give them a credit card in order to start doing service. They'll give you a whole bunch of stuff up free. Like AWS will give you a million Lambda functions and
Okay.
like certain EC2 instances you could have those for free. So
yeah.
like it's cool because you can dabble. And so this is a great thing where you can spin up some servers and you can shut them down and you can see what all that's like. But if you're doing it with your credit card, all of a sudden, if you leave stuff running and you forget about it, you start getting charged for it.
Yeah.
So
So
there's
do it
this
with your
website.
partner's credit card. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
What were
So,
you
anyways, my credit card number is, but
Yeah.
but what I was gonna say
Here's what we
is there's this website, I think it's called privacy.com, where you get individual digital credit cards. So you can put like 99 cents on there or something like that and use that credit
Mm,
card number to start your AWS service. So then in case you do spin up a whole bunch of money, like it's possible where you could do something. You accidentally leave an EC2 instance on, you forget
yeah.
some configurations, you get
Create an
DDoSed and you didn't
infinite loop.
have,
Yeah, you get
yeah,
an infinite loop
whatever
and all of a sudden
whatever happens. Well, guess what? You're billed for 99 cents. And good luck if they,
on
try
that note
coming.
too, I will say that's one thing we've liked about Firebase is they have an emulator suite. So you can run everything
Yeah.
locally to test stuff out to make sure that you don't have problems with like infinite loops and stuff. Because that can happen and you can very quickly, things can go wrong if that
Within a
starts
few
to be able to
seconds.
function. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can have it runs a lot. But the other thing I would say too about that's awesome about these services is they are secure. They handle a lot of security. So it makes things a
Yeah.
lot easier for developers and they're fast. And the other thing too is like nowadays, like if you know full stack, I mean, everything's built on the web through browser now. I mean, every app is
Yeah.
basically a web app now. So that you can do anything. It's not like you're not as limited as like, I mean, even just what, like 10 years ago, you couldn't build stuff as easily as you can now. It was so much harder because you had to know how to build like the actual GUI and stuff and all that crap on the front to make like it
Yep.
interactive for users. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think, the aim of everyone should sort of be to go down the road of full stack eventually. But when you're starting, I would definitely say that you want to do some front end to start because
Yeah.
they're just going to get you sort of comfortable with the main technologies in web development, like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And in terms of backend development, I mean, there's a couple different languages that you can actually use. There's a bunch of different languages that you
Yeah.
can use. Generally, JavaScript is one of those, and it's easy for most new developers because you already know a lot of JavaScript from front end development. But there's plenty of backend,
PHP,
Python's a very
PHP,
Java.
Python,
yeah.
Java. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's just tons of them. So,
Well, that's the
um,
other nice thing about the cloud services. They let you choose what languages you want to use, and they
yeah,
all accept. I mean, like I think like Firebase, you can use like what, like 15 languages that you can choose
totally.
from
And they
for
have
what you want to write
documentation
back.
on all of them, so
Yeah,
you can
it's incredible.
yeah, very easily use them.
Actually, I would say that that is like when you're gonna if you're choosing to do a project and you're starting a full stack project for the first time, my recommendation would be look at the documentation for what you're for the
Yeah,
services you might use first before you even go start using one and see which documentation is written in a way that you can understand it the best. Because you're going to be looking at the documentation a lot. And if it's not good, that can, kill a project because it can make it very hard
yeah.
to move forward. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even whether or not the documentation is good, but if it's sort of written in the style that you like too. Because
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
I've just read documentation like, yeah, the information's there, but I just hate going through this documentation. Like
Yeah.
there's just something about it that bothers me.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you guys have any other questions? I think we're coming up to the end here. Um,
I
I
would just
wanted
say
to,
too that I
yeah,
agree with you on the front end thing though. It's nice when you're starting out to be able to see actually what's happening as you're doing it. And I find front end's nice for that. Plus,
yeah,
if you're learning front end, as you start to learn JavaScript, you're starting to learn the logic anyway. So it gives
mhm,
you that, and the back end stuff like databases and stuff, the amount that you'll for a web app, the amount you generally need to know to handle the back end like database stuff is the bar is very low for a lot of
yeah,
full stack. If you're using a service like Firebase or like AWS or something, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know the bare minimum basically to get by. It's not as
Yeah.
bad.
You need to know like the main concepts, and then you can sort of take that
Yeah.
into whatever service you're using. Obviously, I think it's important to have one as your main, bread and butter. Like I work because usually when I work with backend developers, they tend to favor a technology, and I would say that's to your detriment because like I can give a pretty specific example of that too. Is I was working on a project and we had another developer come in and they were like criticizing the fact that we were using Firebase for auth. I know I've talked about this before, but it's like they were like, "Oh, this is, I don't know why you're using Firebase. This is so bad, whatever." Because they just didn't understand it was what the issue was. They never used it before. And I had to explain to my boss at the time, who didn't understand technology. He was a C-level executive, that literally Firebase is owned by Google. And if we try to write an auth service that's better than that, it'll take us years and we'll never come close to it. So why would we stray from that? Right. And that's what a lot of people do. So it's sort of, I think it's a sort of good practice to get used to a lot of different technologies, see which one works best for you, which you sort of are used to, but then be open to exploring other ones, because I think to this day they're probably unable to update the site because he doesn't know Firebase and he's
Yeah.
unwilling to learn it. So,
Well, the beauty is once you know a couple languages and stuff too, learning other stuff is not that hard.
yeah,
It's,
totally.
it's everything's doable then.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped you guys on your journey.
For anybody who's watching after the live stream, if there are any questions that we just didn't answer that were on your mind, please let us know down in the comments and we will answer those questions, not in this video, but actually as a reply to your comment.
Yeah. And we'll even reach out to you if you want. And for anybody who's looking to become a developer or web developer, we do offer a pretty cool program. It's called the Web Dev Incubator. And it's basically a way for you to get into web development as soon as possible and actually start earning money in your first like few months as being
and learn full stack.
And learn full stack, right?
Yeah.
So we teach you everything from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, even low code solutions. And then we do all the backend stuff too as well. So we do all the APIs, the databases, teach you Firebase and React, all that good stuff.
Cybersecurity
As well, which is something you're not ever going to find in a boot camp, right? It's everything.
I've never seen a boot camp offer any cybersecurity.
Yeah. And we're very specifically not a boot camp because our main focus, we have all the curriculum, but our main focus is actually on you as a developer, right? We are a mentorship and a coaching program to help you become a developer who is hireable. And that's the one thing that every single boot camp under the sun is missing. They just want to teach you the syntax, but they don't want to teach you the important things like how to communicate with people, how to build a resume that lands, how to build a portfolio project, how to basically do everything you need to do to actually work in the field. They just teach you they sort of just like hand you a bunch of books and they're like, there you go.
They have somebody who's one step ahead of you teach you the free stuff that's available everywhere that you could just learn on your own.
Yeah.
Basically. So our Web Dev Incubator is basically a month by month course right now, but it won't be in the future. As we're building it right now, we're in beta. So if you'd like to join, you can get in at a very, 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 very discounted price. But yeah, give us a call right in the description. What's a good word for everybody to use this week if they want information on the web dev? Hash.
Yeah.
Not the 420 hash, like the technology hash. Right?
Not
hash
the kind you would find at a bakery.
Yeah. A bakery with air quotes. If you guys want more information, just throw in the comments the word hash, like Chris did right there. Very nice, Chris. We like your hash there.
Or you could just like leave a little hashtag in there.
There you go. Leave a hashtag.
That works too.
Put in some hash, whatever you want. You could put like a little weed leaf emoji, whatever you want to do. We'll get the message. And we'll reach out to you and give you a free action call where we're just going to discuss what's in the program. We'll give you some free value on any hangups you're having as a developer. I love these talks. Like I had one this week with Eric, who's in here, just helping him through some of the stuff that he's going through. He's applying for some jobs right now. And you know, he's just working through like how to actually make his resume land with people. And you know, gave him a couple suggestions that are definitely going to help him in terms of getting more responses from people and actually landing a job. So if that's for you, feel free to put hash in the description. We'll reach directly out to you, give you a bunch of information, and you know, there's no pressure. We just want to make sure that it's the right program for you. And if it is, then you can come join us on our call, which is in 30 minutes. So if you are inside the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in 30 minutes. Anything else you guys want to say before we sign off today?
No.
Nope. Happy Saturday, everybody. We will see you bright and early next Saturday. We are here every single Saturday. So come join us. It's great to have people in the audience who are commenting and asking questions. Chris said, I have a bunch of questions about my project for you guys at 10 a.m. We will see you there, Chris.
Awesome.
Chris is building a cool Sudoku app right now. So if you guys
Pretty
want to
sweet.
build some cool passion project, join us inside the Web Dev Incubator. Otherwise, we'll see you here every Saturday at 9 a.m. for a free live stream where you can just join us and talk tech. So cool. Thank you guys. Have a good week and a good weekend. We'll see you later.
Later.
Later.